This is From Courtroom to Carline, the podcast where we discuss life as a lawyer and a parent.
I'm Jenna.
And I'm Rick.
Your hosts and partners both in the courtroom and in parenting.
Join us as we navigate the fascinating worlds of law and family life.
Now, this is not legal advice, but in every episode, From Courtroom to Carline is a delightful blend of legal insight and parenting hilarity. Get
ready for a roller coaster ride where law meets love and where the gavel meets the car line.
This is From Courtroom to Carline, a legal parenting podcast, and on today's episode, we have Dr. Katie Schubert. She is the owner of Cypress Wellness Center, which consists of a group of 40 mental health therapists, and she is also a certified sex therapist. Welcome to the show, Katie.
Thank you.
Tell our guests how it is to run a successful business as well as raising 3 kids.
Well, that's a loaded question, as I'm sure you guys are aware. My husband is a huge help. He's a stay-at-home dad, which keeps everything running fairly smoothly. But I think the key is just to have a really healthy work-life balance.
So what made you want to start your own business, and where did you kind of start before you went and started your own business?
I was teaching at universities for a few years prior to starting Cypress Wellness Center, and the hours, although they were flexible, they weren't as flexible as I wanted them to be. And I've never been great at having a boss or having people tell me what to do. So I figured it was probably time to start my own thing. And I started Cypress Wellness Center in 2019, like a few months before the pandemic really started going. We pivoted a few months into business to accommodate the pandemic, and it worked really well. But my schedule is pretty flexible. I can not go to work if I don't want to, or if the kids have something going on, I can work as much as I want to, which is helpful. Some weeks I needed to be my own boss. I needed to create my own schedule and not have to answer to anybody.
Now, over the years, you've grown your business pretty well to the point where you've got multiple locations, you've got multiple therapists working for you. How were you able to scale so quickly?
I bought one property in St. Pete prior to real estate going crazy. And it worked out really well. It made my business plan pretty predictable, not having to worry about rents and only a mortgage, which is fairly stable. And then since then, I bought 3 other properties and have hired therapists to fill the properties. We have all sorts of different kinds of therapists at Cypress. So we offer free therapy, we offer reduced fee therapy, and there isn't a whole lot of that here. There are a few organizations that do offer free therapy and reduced fee therapy, but the turnover for therapists there is quite high, and therapists at Cypress stay for years. I think we just filled a need. We are able to offer something that other companies don't offer in St. Pete, and because of that, we scaled fairly quickly.
What types of avenues do you use to get your name out there?
At first, we spent quite a lot of money on marketing because nobody knew about Cypress. But we've been in business for about 5 years, and now it's mostly word of mouth. Like other clinicians in the Tampa Bay area know about Cypress and our services. And then our clients refer a ton of their family and friends to us, which is lovely. So we stay pretty full based off of just word of mouth. Like our marketing budget is pretty low at this point. We don't need to spend a whole lot of money on marketing anymore.
When you started Cypress, were you really in the thick of things? So for example, Rick and I have our own firm, and we're doing the cases, we're going to court, we're doing it all. Hopefully we'll be able to grow and add associates. But when you started, were you really having to do it all as a business owner?
I had a full caseload. Therapists, when they say they have a full caseload, they typically see anywhere from 25 to 30 clients a week. But I was probably about 30 clients a week that I was seeing, plus doing all of the phone calls for Cypress. So I was always on call, always answering the phone, seeing a ton of clients, trying to help the therapist that I had hired. And it was unsustainable, to say the least. But since then, I've hired a practice manager who is friggin' incredible. And then she has someone who helps her, so an assistant. And then I have like a biller that handles all the insurance claims. I have an amazing CPA who handles all of the financial stuff for the practice. So now I have like a team of people that allow me to just sit back and watch Cypress run without me, losing my head.
You mentioned that you don't have a lot of turnover, and I can imagine that is so important doing what you do because the therapist gets to know the client on a very deep personal level. And if something were to switch where they've got to adjust or, move to a different therapist, it's almost like starting from scratch and resetting that relationship. And that obviously can't feel good as a client. So how have you been able to not just grow the number of therapists that you have on staff, but to keep them so that you maintain those stable relationships between your clients and the therapists on staff?
It's been interesting to find out what works. I do what works for me and I implement that as a practice owner. So for instance, I hate being micromanaged. I hate being told what to do. I hate somebody watching me over my shoulder. I don't do that to anybody that works at Cypress. I let everybody create their own schedules, dictate what they want to be doing, how much they want to be working. If they need something, I buy it for them, practice related. We offer benefits. So I try to give them all of the things that I would want as an employee, and it seems to work out well. I mean, going into private practice is hard. There's a lot that you have to do to be successful, a lot of financial stuff, marketing stuff. And so, people don't want to do all that. It's really easy, I think, to work for a group practice because you show up, you see your client, you leave. You're not in charge of anything else. You don't have to worry about anything else. So I try to make it as easy as possible because I value them all so much and they're amazing at what they do. So I want them to like working at Cypress.
I love that. Taking a quick pivot. So you have 3 kids, and one thing that you guys did was bought an RV and travel a lot. So kind of explain to our guests what that thought process was and why you wanted to buy the RV and how it's been for your family.
Anybody with children, especially 3 plus probably, know that you just kind of live in a chronic state of chaos. And we would rather that chaos be contained to an RV versus our home. When you're traveling, you can get out and you can do things and you can keep the kids entertained with novel things that they've never seen before, they've never done before. Part of the reason for buying the RV was selfish, right? We didn't want to spend our vacations living in chaos and filth in our house. And then part of it was because we want the kids to be well traveled. We want them to see other places. Our kids are small still, so traveling abroad it doesn't sound fun at the moment, spending that much time on an airplane with them. That will come, but right now we can travel locally and, tow our house with us as we go. It's an easy way to travel and it's fun for the kids and it saves our sanity on occasion.
Where has been one of the places that you guys have gone that you've enjoyed, that the kids have enjoyed? What's been one of those places?
We haven't been brave enough to travel across the country yet. But over this summer, we're going to take an East Coast trip and go all the way up to Maine. I don't know how it's going to go, but we're going to attempt it. Right now, we've gone up to the Smokies a few times, which has been just incredible. Lots of Florida camping. We haven't gone too far, but I would say the Smokies. When we were going to take a trip up to North Florida for spring break, and our kids were like, no, we want to go see the mountains. So we switched our reservations. We're going to be going back up to the mountains and maybe seeing snow. I don't know. Our last trip we went up to Bryson City. And the last night we were there, it got down to freezing and everything in the trailer froze. So we had no water. We were running out of propane, so we were running short on heat. We were like, we got to get out of here. We got to go back to Florida. This isn't working anymore. So hopefully, we're hoping that in March, I think we're going close to Asheville, it's not going to be as brutally cold because we're not equipped.
Yes. Well, that's definitely sounds exciting. And, one thing we've found it difficult is traveling, but I understand what you mean with the RV. It's contained, right? Because when you don't have a place to put the kids and they're running around and it's wild, it's a lot.
Yeah, it absolutely is.
When you talk about the chaos, I can certainly relate because when we were living closer to downtown St. Pete in our small little house with the three boys, there were times where I don't like the chaos contained within the home. I'd rather it be outside for, nature to handle because that seems to work every time, at least take the stress off me. So luckily we lived within walking distance to a park. So whenever it was getting too chaotic in the home, I would say, all right, we're going to walk to the park and you guys can get your energy out there. And that was a lifesaver for years for us because, like you said, it gets chaotic. And I'm one that I can't have that going on in my household for too long or it drives me crazy. So one of the things that I admire is that it seems like, with the traveling that you do, you've really taught your children the importance of appreciating nature, of being outside, of exploring, doing different things. Why don't you tell us a little bit about, why you think that's so important to instill in your kids at this age?
I grew up in Northern California and we lived on an acre in the middle of like crops and orchards. So it was, you couldn't see another house for quite some time. And we would spend our free time outside, picking crops and eating them, picking the tomatoes across the street and eating them. We wouldn't spend our time inside, let alone in front of a television or an iPad. Granted, we depend on our iPad occasionally and the TV occasionally. Our backyard is small, but we have chickens, we have rabbits. We try to get the kids outside as much as possible. It's good for them. I think it gives them a sense of a connection with something other than technology.
And one of the things that I seem to find myself doing all the time, more so than I'd like, is entertaining. And I remember there was one day where we had been entertaining the kids, all day. And then Jenna made the comment, it's okay for them to be bored. And I never really thought about it, but when you really kind of reflect on your own childhood, it's like, yeah, there were so many days where I was bored out of my mind because we didn't have access to YouTube and we didn't have access to all the things that the kids have access to now. It's okay for them to be bored. They need to be bored so that they can develop those creative skills and find ways to entertain themselves. So very cool that, by traveling, by, teaching them about nature, I'm sure that, hey, listen, just because the TV isn't on, that doesn't mean that I'm going to be bored. They can find something to do, whether it's inside, outside, read. So that's pretty cool.
So Katie, your front yard is my goal in life. Why don't you tell our listeners what your front yard looks like and tell us why you started it?
I've always loved plants, and our front yard is all Florida native. So when we moved in, there was a program through UF where they would come in and they would teach you about all Florida native plants, what to plant in small spaces, because we don't have a large yard. But I wanted to make it as fun as possible. So we have all sorts of fruit trees out there and all sorts of native plants. We don't use the sprinklers. There's no water spent at all in our front yard or backyard. I tell my husband, I was like, it's survival of the fittest out there. Like, if it's not going to survive, it's not my problem. Like, the plants will either survive or not. I'm not going to dwell. But the kids like to go out there. They eat the plants. We have cranberry hibiscus in the front yard, a ton of cranberry hibiscus because it spreads. And my eldest son will offer it to everybody. Eat this, try this, it's good. And we have all sorts of really cool like fruits trees in the front yard, and the kids will try it. They haven't liked a whole lot of them, but they've tried it and they know that fruit comes off of trees, which a lot of kids are pretty detached about, where food comes from. It's sustainable. It's pollinator friendly, so we don't use any pesticides. We have lots of butterflies, lots of bugs, which is amazing.
I definitely think it's great to see just the plants grow, the food grow, and just to be able to see that, because when you live in a neighborhood, you don't get to see that often. So that's awesome that you guys have done that.
How have you gotten your children to sort of try all the different foods, but that are either grown at home or when you guys are traveling? Obviously, you can't just go up to, a nearby Publix. How have you gotten them to sort of adapt to that sort of lifestyle where, hey, these are the things that we're going to eat. You either like it or you don't.
They have not adapted to that lifestyle. I don't want anybody listening thinking that my kids will eat whatever I put in front of them. My eldest child will try anything. And I tell him, try it once. If you don't like it, you don't need to eat it. My middle child, the girl of the family, she won't try anything. She's very, very picky. And the baby eats everything that you put in front of him.
I know. I tell our kids all the time, I said, we want to take you guys out to these nice restaurants, but if you don't eat the food, we can't go. But, it's a work in progress. And like you said, we just try to get them to at least try something. But yes, I did not realize that I would be spending so much time trying to figure out what exactly each of the three kids likes to eat and will eat so that they can get full.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And sometimes they just don't get full because you're like, I'm done trying to figure this out. If you want to be hungry tonight, you be hungry. Mama's going to bed.
So I want to sort of shift gears. You have a podcast of your own. Could you tell our listeners a little bit about that podcast and where they can find that? And
Dr. Molly Hart, who is a pelvic floor physical therapist, and I started a podcast called Sex on the Floor. We started, I don't know, so long ago. And then she had a baby, and then I had a baby, and then she had a baby, and then I had two more babies. Just in the past year, we've gotten pretty consistent, though. But it's called Sex on the Floor. You can Google it. It's everywhere. It's on all the platforms. And we talk about sex and relationships and things that can go right and wrong in intimacy and in relationships and with the pelvic floor. The theme, obviously, is sex. So many of my clients also go and see Molly or another pelvic floor physical therapist. And when Molly and I started chatting about this, we realized that we were getting the same kinds of questions from all of our clients. So we just started, talking about it and recording it, and people started watching it and reaching out to us with additional questions and comments. So we just kept going. We like doing it. We don't really like promote it a whole lot, but for whatever reason, a lot of people seem to find it and listen to it. But I think that the combination between a certified sex therapist and a pelvic floor physical therapist and us talking about the things that we see is really helpful for a lot of women and men, and it gives them insights into their relationship and what could be going right and wrong.
would you say that your podcast is geared more so towards individuals, either, a woman or a man, or just geared towards couples to help, their sex life?
We did sexual health for men, and then we did sexual health for women. We did an episode on like sex toys for men and sex toys for women. Some episodes are geared towards men and some are towards women, and then some are for relationships and some are for individuals. So it runs the gamut.
I know for us, in doing the podcast, it allows us to talk about things that we normally can't talk about in a short period of time with our client. We're able to have these conversations with other entrepreneurs, other parents, other people, and just to really get out there and let these, people know who we are. And we found that extremely helpful and fulfilling. Have you kind of found the same?
Yeah, I feel like more than anything, time is limited. You have so much time with the clients. And if they're really wanting to do like a deep dive into something specific, it's easy for me to say, hey, go listen to this episode that Molly and I did. It will answer a lot of your questions, and then come back with questions, and we'll talk about it in greater depth in the ways that you need, in the ways that you want it to be addressed. I found the podcast to be especially helpful in that. Or a new client will come in and they'll tell me, I've listened to all of your episodes, and that's why I'm here, because I realized that the thing I'm going through at home, you can help with. And they may not have realized that previously. I feel like a lot of people don't understand what sex therapy is or how sex therapists can help. And when they're able to hear me and Molly talk about issues that they're probably having, they realize that they can be helped fairly quickly and simply.
Katie, what has been the hardest thing about being a business owner and a mom?
Finding that work-life balance that I made mention to. So I feel like I'm settling into it now, but the first few years were really hard. It was a lot of work, and I didn't have my amazing practice manager. I was doing a lot of the work myself. But I think that finding a team of people to help with that work-life balance and then knowing yourself and what you need to like stay a good parent and also stay a good like boss at work to avoid burnout so that you're not like yelling at your children or like being impatient with staff. That was probably the hardest thing is figuring out what I needed to be a healthy person.
What do you think has been the most rewarding part of the business that you've started? Starting from where, it was just you up to the point now where you've got, a lot of therapists working under you. What's been the most rewarding aspect of that journey?
The first thing is the reason I started Cypress. I wanted everybody to be able to get mental health services, regardless of how much money they had or if they had insurance or not. And we can do that. You call Cypress looking for a therapist, and we will not say no. We will get you a therapist. If you say, I can't afford any therapy right now, fine. That's cool. We'll get you with a therapist. It's okay. We'll pay for those services on our end. You don't have to worry about it. We're doing that right now with a few hurricane victims who just they don't have the spoons or the money to deal with the finances of therapy. That's one of the benefits. And the other benefit is more personal. I have time to spend with my kids. I can not work and go to their school functions. I can take days off and take my girl to go get a pedicure or, go watch a movie.
I definitely can relate to you on just having that time to attend the kids' school functions. I was at a job that allowed me to, but I always was worried about finding coverage or, making sure that my calendar was cleared and then rushing back to work. And now that we have more control over our court calendar and our schedule, I really make a effort to be as involved in their school activities, the field trips that I can be. And it just makes me have less of that mom guilt. So I'm glad that I'm able to do that.
And an attorney friend of ours shared with us a very moving reel that he saw on social media where it says, when you get older, you're never going to say, oh, I wish I would have spent more time at the office. You're going to say, I wish I would have spent more time with my kids. There's not one person that's ever going to say, oh, I wish I would have been at the office more. It's just not going to be a thought that crosses your mind as you get older. So that really kind of resonated with me and stuck with me. And yes, I do want to put in the work to grow our business and be successful. But at the same time, if you do that at the expense of your family, it's not worth it. And you're going to have regret at the end, no matter how successful you are. So, I think that it's so important to always make sure you have your priorities straight in terms of, yes, success is good, but you've got to make sure that it's not at the expense of spending precious time with your family and with your kids.
Katie, what's something that you do to fill your needs and do what you need to do, not so much, as a mom, we get wrapped up with the kids, but what's something that you do to take time for yourself?
Now's not the time where I can dedicate a lot of time to myself, and I'm okay with that. I have come to terms with that. I think that people have problems with that when they feel like or when their expectations don't match what's happening in their life. Again, I know this is a season. I know it will pass. I know there will come a time where I can focus on me again and go and do things on my own. Now's not that time. So I opt for really easy things like my husband and my kids both know. I need to wake up in the morning. I need to eat my breakfast. I need to drink my coffee. Right? Like I need that in order to stack the rest of my day in a successful way. If I don't get that little thing in the morning, I'm a disaster. I'm a grumpy mess the entire day. I opt for little tiny things like that now. I didn't start having kids until I was 35. So I had 35 years of being able to do exactly what I wanted to do with my time and with my life. And then since 35, I haven't been. But you know what? This is a season. It will end. And a few years from now, I'll probably wish that I were back in this season. So I'm okay with that. I'm okay, spending the time with the kids and doing all of the things for the kids and not as much time for me.
We can definitely relate to that because Rick and I are constantly reminding ourselves of we are in this season and that's okay, right? Like I want to be in the mom season. I want to be doing all of this. I'm glad if I can just get 5 minutes to read, a book that I want to read. But yes, we understand that, we're raising 3 active young boys and we're just trying to enjoy that time. One thing that I read the other day is we will spend our lives knowing our children as adults for most of their life. We will only know them as children for such a short period of time, and we are just trying to embrace that right now so that we don't miss out on anything.
That's not to say there aren't times where you have an expectation that, hey, listen, I really want this time to myself. I think I deserve this time to myself, and it's just not there. I mean, just yesterday, it was Jenna's birthday, and it's a Thursday. The kids have school, and we're just trying to, I don't know, she's got an expectation for what she wants the day to be like, and it's just hard to not meet those expectations because of the season that you're in. And we're all human. We all want to feel special, especially on our birthday. And as a husband, it's tough to see that, listen, you're not going to get the day that you want because this is the season that we're in right now. So hopefully...
I think Rick was more upset about not having done all these things. I was glad that I got to take a nap and that, I was just rested when the kids came home. But you just have different birthdays and different events in this time when you're raising kids.
I really do think it's all about expectations. Whenever people feel sad or disappointed, it's typically due to an expectation. And it's important to ask yourself, is that expectation realistic? Like I've had a number of people ask me about my favorite book that I've read recently, and I'm like, are you joking? Like, do you know I have 3 small children? I haven't read a book from cover to cover in 7 years because my child is 7. My oldest child is 7. So, and that's fine. It's all about expectations.
Katie, let our listeners know where they can find you.
Our website is a great way. It's cypresswellnesscenter.com.
We are so glad that you were able to join us today and we were able to talk about your business, your kids, just everything mom and business related. So thank you so much.
Yes, thank you for coming on the show, Katie.
That is another episode of From Courtroom to Carline, a legal parenting podcast.
So stay tuned because we're going to go into our next segment on what happened to Florida Man. So in this segment on what happened to Florida Man, we're going to go back a couple of years in Charlotte County where a gentleman was outside of a nightclub. He was intoxicated and the police were called out by the gentleman himself. And his complaint to the police was that the nightclub was refusing to let him in because they wouldn't let him in with his kitten that he had. And this upset him. He felt like he had a right to go inside the nightclub with his kitten and that the nightclub was breaking the law for refusing entry. So the police come out. When they come out, they can tell that he's already extremely intoxicated. He's not very cooperative with the police. He's just upset about his kitten not being allowed entry into the nightclub, and he ends up getting arrested for misuse of the 911 operating system, disorderly intoxication, resisting an officer without violence, and trespass because the nightclub had asked him to leave and he refused to leave. So what happened to this Florida man? Well, one of the counts, the misuse of 911, was dismissed, but he ended up pleading guilty and being sentenced to 6 months of probation. as a condition of probation, he had to complete the mental health court program there in Charlotte County. So I can tell you from our experience here in Pinellas County and the surrounding counties, almost every single circuit has a mental health court that's designed for people with mental health issues. And the goal of mental health court isn't necessarily to punish the individual, which is what the purpose of criminal court is, but more so to help the individuals. And this has been another episode of From Courtroom to Carline, a legal parenting podcast. See you next time.